folks, this is Sanchez and this is our second flipped video lecture. This will be our lecture for working on Chapter 1 Basic Concepts, and today we're going to look at diffusion. Alright, remember when we're watching a flipped video lecture, it's best to have your geo logbook out ready to go. Last time I gave you a quick overview of one method that has worked very nicely in most college classes, which is known as the Cornell note method. I thought we'd start off today's video lecture with just a little review. This is another strategy, and you can YouTube videos on how to take notes and try different methods. So this one utilizes an outline method, but I also want you to pay attention to that this student suggests different drawings and visuals and also post-it note annotations. So let's just go ahead and start off our video lecture with just another tip in terms of how you should start your notes. Alright, so that video clip kind of gave you a visual and a sense of what strategy that you could use to organize your flipped video notes. I want to remind you that this flipped video lecture corresponds with your textbook, and diffusion begins on page 36, 37, 30, and all the way to 39. So today we're going to talk about diffusion in hopes that we define what diffusion is, and we're going to categorize it in two main categories. We have something known as relocation diffusion, and our second category, which is known as expansion diffusion. Now, under expansion diffusion, you can see there are three that we break it down to. We have something called contagious, stimulus, and hierarchical. Alright, let's go and take a look at the first one, which we're going to categorize as relocation diffusion. In the simplest sense, relocation diffusion occurs when innovation or idea product is carried into new areas by migrating individuals or populations. Now, the easiest way to remember relocation diffusion is going to be it requires human movement. Now, diffusion, we're talking about how an idea or a product or some sense is going to spread across space. Remember, as human geographers, we're still thinking about question where things are and why they're there. And we see a globalization and ideas spreading around the world, diffusion helps us get a sense of how that movement occurs. A perfect example of relocation diffusion you can see in this graphic right here. We could refer back to the Columbian Exchange, where we actually have individuals that have to take a product and move it across the Atlantic Ocean. And that's how we introduce new crops. For example, from the Americas, Europeans got squash, sweet potatoes, pineapple, cacao, beans, and again diffused over, we can see other items that begin to flourish in the New World. Our second type or category of diffusion is known as expansion diffusion. One of those subcategories is called stimulus diffusion. Now, with stimulus diffusion, it's not the whole idea or the whole product that's going to spread out or diffuse. Stimulus, it means kind of stimulates or gets an idea flourishing. So part of the idea diffuses, but not the whole idea or concept. Now, kind of one of the funniest, best examples of stimulus diffusion we could think about for McDonald's, for example. Now, if you go up the street to McDonald's, chances are you can order a Big Mac or a hamburger or cheeseburger. Now, McDonald's has diffused and spread across the world. You pretty much go in every country, and chances are you can find the golden arches. So what you have on the screen is an example of a McDonald's menu in India. Now, interesting enough, you can see we have the McCurry pan and we have the Makalo Tiki. So we see all these interesting items on the menu. But note that we don't have the hamburger or the cheeseburger. So for example, in India, which predominantly is the Hindu religion, they don't eat cow. So McDonald's, when they diffuse there, it's part of the idea of this fast food kind of sandwich, easy access, cheap, easy meal, but not necessarily the whole concept of a cheeseburger. Another type of diffusion that falls under the expansion category is something called hierarchical. Now, this is an idea that passes on from a node of influence or importance. So, for example, someone that's really important, let me give you some free examples, like Oprah, for example. Now, you guys might be a little bit young for this, but Oprah Winfrey, if she, back in the day on her talk show or her magazine, started using a certain face cream or started using, for example, Oprah's Book of the Month Club, because Oprah was such a prominent, important figure, once people found out, well, gee, Oprah recommends this book, maybe I should pick it up at Barnes & Noble, maybe I should order on Amazon, for example. So when you see someone that's prominent or important using or recommending the product, that idea is going to diffuse down to other areas. Another example of this type of diffusion we can think of in terms of fashion. So for you fashionistas out there, what I did is I Googled 2017 fall fashion trends, and you can see some interesting pictures. So for example, in the top left you have a trend that's going to be coming up, which is an off-the-shoulder, kind of circa the 80s fashion. At the bottom left of the screen, purple. Hopefully the cat necklace doesn't diffuse down, but and of course the gentleman, I didn't leave you off the screen as well. Another fall fashion trend is going to be pink, because of course real men wear pink. So New York Fashion Week or the runways of Paris, these ideas or these trends are going to flourish and they're going to diffuse down. So chances are, maybe by fall or maybe the following year, you're going to see some of these trends or some of these colors or some of these styles maybe in your favorite shops. So maybe you see them at Forever 21, maybe you see them at H&M. So it's expanding out, starting from a predominantly important area and spreading to the masses. Now, hierarchical diffusion is encouraged by modern methods of communication. So we definitely say computers and internet and email definitely help spread this concept. Now, interesting enough, I have a video on the screen. We talk about in your textbook hierarchical diffusion, but we also have something called reverse. In this case, I have a video queued up for Walmart. Let's go ahead and take a look. So it doesn't have sound, but you can see Walmart starts in Arkansas in the 1960s, 1970s, and you can see slowly spreading across the map of America. Mostly we see in the South, the Midwest, but continues to boom on. And of course, we know that Walmart just right around the street from our school. But Walmart over time has definitely expanded and diffused, but in a reverse manner, because it started off, of course, in a smaller town and now has diffused to larger towns, cities, and mega centers around the country. The final type of expansion diffusion we're going to highlight is something called contagious diffusion. With contagious diffusion is something that spreads very, very rapidly and usually starts with one person, and in a short amount of time it will move very rapidly. So for example, I put at the bottom slide things going viral, especially with social media and YouTube and Twittergram and Snapchat. There's one little thing that can all of a sudden be posted, or if a video someone likes, and next thing you know, everybody's liking it, everybody's sharing it, everybody's going to get a laugh out of it. I know you guys were relatively young, but just I think it was a year or two ago, there was something called the Ice Bucket Challenge, and everybody was filming themselves and posting on their pages and so forth, dumping a big bucket of ice and giving money for charity or something like that. So with this day and age, with internet and again this modern technology, contagious diffusion is something that can spread very rapid. Now that was just a current example. We can also see on the screen right now, we could also apply contagious diffusion. For example, this is a map of the spread of the bubonic plague. So something you learned in your 7th grade history class. We could also connect it to influenza outbreak during World War I. So obviously sickness, we think of contagious, something again with germs and transfers that can spread at a rapid pace. Alright, and then finally on the screen, this might be one that you maybe want to draw a model of in your notes. You can see some visuals of our different types of diffusion. So you can see right here relocation diffusion, where we actually have movement, whether it's across country or across an ocean. So there's actually movement involved. We have our example of contagious diffusion, where again very, very quickly we see it spread across. And then we also right here these nodes of importance for our hierarchical expansion diffusion, which is going to spread from one node all the way down to these sort of lesser nodes down here. Alright, so with just this brief introduction of diffusion, I thought what better way to wrap things up today but with a rap. Get it? Get it? Alright, so let's go ahead and just watch this little play on diffusion rap. Here we go.
Let me tell you all about diffusion. It's when something that gets moving sets off at a place called the heart. Easy a term will be called the start. There are 4 types you must know: relocation and hierarchical. All 4 describe how things will move. Don't forget stimulus, contagious too. Relocation is where we'll start. Like when the Spanish put forces on boats and embarked, brought them all to the Western Hemisphere, when natives trade to a higher gear. Hierarchical always trickles down from celebrities or the ones wearing crowns. Examples would be politics or clothing. Down from the top, the ideas are all growing. Contagious is the next one. Don't step too close or diffusion's done. Mostly shows how sicknesses move, widespread throughout just like the flu. Stimulus happens when a trade is brought in, and it's changed a bit to satisfy them. Indian McDonald's often offer no meat, and others without pork in the Middle East. Diffusion types all share one trait: they move near to far and rarely straight. Now you got them all squared away to dominate the test later on in May.
I bet you're going to have that rap song in your head all day. Alright folks, let's go ahead and finish up our last portion of the flip lecture with a little diffusion palooza, if you will. So on your screen I have placed 5 examples, and I'm going to give you a few minutes to see if you can identify. Now don't cheat, test yourself and see if you can identify the different types of diffusion. So the first one, Italians migrated to the US and taught Americans how to make pizza. Number 2, the diffusion of AIDS. Number 3, the presence of horses in the Americas by early 1500s. Number 4, Christian faith in Europe spread from Rome as the center and then to other provinces and settlements. And number 5, the Apple iPad tablets. Here we go. See if you can test yourself. Alright, number 1, if you answered relocation diffusion, you are correct. Italians relocating, moving across, immigrating to the United States. Number 2 would be an example of contagious diffusion. Number 3, horses in the Americas by the 1500s in the diffusion rap will be relocation diffusion. Number 4, the Christian faith starting in Rome as that center point and diffusing would be an example of hierarchical diffusion. And then finally the Apple iPad, which is now stimulated into different tablets, an example of stimulus diffusion. Alright folks, that wraps up our video lecture. Be sure to review your notes and keep in mind to go back, add your drawings, add from your textbook notes, post-it notes from our discussion.